Recently, I finished collecting Volume 1 of Marvel's Ultimate X-Men, and today I'll show you the entire run. Check it out. Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name's Chris, and this is Northgarden Comics. Well, first, I want to say I hope you all had a very merry free comic book day. That was just last Saturday, August 14th, and I hope you all got out there and were able to get some free comic books, but then hopefully also take advantage of some sales that may have been going on in your area. If so, be sure to let me know down in the comments the cool things that you were able to bring home. And of the free books that you read, did you have a favorite? What stood out to you? Are there new things that you've been hooked onto because of those teasers of stories that came out on Free Comic Book Day? I'll say that I only grabbed a few books of actual Free Comic Book Day books, and while I'm trying to resist being all in on event after event that Marvel does, I got to admit that the big multiversal event that was teased in the Avengers Free Comic Book Day issue, which is this multiversal epic where you've got Deathlocks and they are protecting various timelines, I believe, or universes, and now there's these Masters of Evil that are coming to dismantle all of that. I'm intrigued, and it's part of their celebration of the upcoming 750th issue of Avengers. So just when I thought I was going to kind of get off the Avengers book and leave it to be something that I would collect as back issues, leave it to Jason Aaron and Ivan Coelho, I believe he's the artist on that, to hook me right back in with that. But let me know what your thoughts are on either that Free Comic Book Day book or any of the other cool things that you picked up at your local shops, and definitely books that maybe you got on sale. Just a little teaser for the sale books that I got. I am looking at almost a box of books down here, another big stack of books over there, and another big stack of books down here, because there were a couple stores in my area that were doing 25-cent back issue sale, and it really doesn't get any better than that. The one store really focused on recent back issues because they don't carry a lot of deeper, older back issues. The comics aren't even their main thing. And then the other store is definitely more traditional comic book store, but they've done 3 of these now where they do a sidewalk sale and they pull out boxes, I guess, that they've had in storage. And it is amazing the things that they have in there, because it seems like they're not really interested in going through that inventory, pulling out keys, and then selling those for a higher price. They're just looking to move that inventory. And so even while I was there looking through boxes, I heard people talking about the books that they were pulling out of there. And I pulled out some pretty remarkable things. So that'll be just a teaser, though. I'll share all that kind of good stuff in some future videos. But today is all about the Ultimate X-Men. You heard me say in the intro that I recently completed Volume 1 of Ultimate X-Men. That was a 100-issue volume. And what I like to do sometimes is these videos, I call them a short box showcase, where I take one box or so off of my shelf. We pull out, maybe it's a volume, maybe it's a story, maybe it's a creative run, and we just look through those books together. And I don't give spoilers, but I do like to show you the books, and maybe it piques your interest and gives you an idea of something additional that you want to collect, or maybe something you've been thinking about. And it's fun for me to pull these out and to look through a whole volume, as is the case today, all at once, to see it in its entirety, and even to kind of celebrate the fact that I completed that volume. So Ultimate X-Men is a 100-issue volume that, like I said, I have now completed. And in just a minute, I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll just show you all of those books in order. But before I do, let me pause and say, if you're new to the channel and this is your first time watching, thank you so much for clicking on the video and giving this channel a try. If you like comic and comic-related content like back issue hauls, new comic hauls, or like what we're doing today, a short box showcase of looking through a whole volume of comics, then please take just a second and hit that subscribe button. And then as you watch, for all of you, if you see something you like, give it a thumbs up. And please let me know your thoughts and questions down below. Now that we got the intro out of the way, let's turn the camera around and take a closer look at Ultimate X-Men.
hopefully as we go through this, the glare is minimized. I think it's not too bad. I'm resisting the desire or the necessity of having to take all of these out of their bags to film them, but I think we're going to be okay, and we're just going to forge ahead with them in the bag, and I don't think it'll detract at all from your viewing pleasure. And I will say we're not going to pause and talk about every single book, because first of all, that would make this video ridiculously long, but then also I don't have a ton to reveal about each book yet because I haven't read most of them. I've only read about the first 10 issues, and so I've been putting this together largely on recommendation and from my enjoyment of those first 10 issues. So I've got to read the entire volume, and we'll see what my thoughts are once it's all said and done. But let's just go through these here. I will say one thing about this first issue, that this #1 was the first Ultimate X-Men comic that I want to say purchased, but I didn't. I got it on Free Comic Book Day. This may have been all the way back in like 2002, and it's the most common printing of this #1 that I see in stores, and it's only recently that I obtained a first printing of #1, and I did only pay $1 for it. I still found it inexpensively, and believe it or not, I found a second copy of the first printing of #1 also for $1. So they are out there, but you can kick this volume off without having to spend up even for issue 1, because like I said, that Free Comic Book Day version is pretty commonly found in the dollar bins or cheaper. So let's just kind of work our way here through this entire volume of 100 issues. When this started off, it launched under the penmanship or the authorship of Mark Millar, and art duties were being handled by not one but two Kubert brothers. Adam and Andy both worked on Ultimate X-Men for this initial run here, and the basic idea of Ultimate X-Men, it's set in the Ultimate Universe, which was really meant to be, from a publishing perspective, a modern reimagining of some of these long-standing heroes to try to introduce a new generation to these comics and these stories and these characters. And Ultimate X-Men was the second Ultimate title to come out. It followed Ultimate Spider-Man, and which, you know, has been hugely popular and ultimately led to us getting Miles Morales. But Ultimate X-Men, I don't think it was as popular, although historically speaking, it did say it came out to both, you know, critical and fan favor, so it was liked. But I never read this back then. Now, granted, I was kind of in a lull of collecting back when this started in 2001, and really what kind of got me back into collecting more heavily was the Transformers comics, which Dreamwave did starting in like 2002, 2003 timeframe. But back at this point, I wasn't reading any X-Men books as a current reader. But like I said, kicked off with Mark Millar and Andy and Adam Kubert, and Reimagining with kind of a modern twist, and it really came out right after the time, like it was the X-Men movie that first started in theaters and kind of introduced a whole new generation of people to the X-Men, and they kicked this off. The Ultimate Universe has a reputation for being a little darker, a little more edgy, and so characters that are mainstays in the main Marvel Universe, they were less afraid to kill people off, it seemed. So there's that going for it. Where this culminates at the end of this volume is a story called Ultimatum, which kills a lot of people, a lot of heroes and villains alike in that event. So it's kind of one of those changing things, but maybe they just felt they had a little bit more liberty to do those things when it's not their main Earth 616 or Earth Prime universe that they're dealing with here. You can see Millar's run and Kubert's run ran for a while. We're into the 30s here, but starting here with issue 34, Michael Bendis takes over, and I think he started doing this after he stopped Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't remember, but he switched off of some other book, and freed up some time, so he started working on the Ultimate X-Men, and you can see artist here, David Finch, was working with him at the time. And this volume went through, you know, a handful of writers, but more artists. So they were more stable on the writing front than they were on the penciling front. So it seems like, you know, people would come in for a story or two and then leave. But writers, I think there were, what, 5 or so basic or main writers throughout this whole volume. To give you an idea of some of those artists that worked on this volume, you heard me mention already Adam Kubert and Andy Kubert, and then you had Tom Rainey, you had Esad Ribic, Chris Bachalo did some issues, David Finch, Brandon Peterson, Stuart Immonen, Lionel Yu, Mark Brooks, I think, was the one drawing it at the end of the volume, Pascal Ferry. That's not an exhaustive list, but, you know, some of the ones that I remember there that were drawing throughout this volume. So, like I said, a mixture of artists and styles and things like that. And one of the things I read about that changed over the course of the volume was the different writers' approach to Wolverine. Wolverine being significant probably because of his popularity in the X-Men movies, and he's been one of the most popular X-Men for a couple decades now. And I feel like it was a little bit more even, maybe not even, but spread out a little bit more when you get back to the 90s and things. We had, you know, Gambit was introduced and he was pretty popular, and Cyclops for me has always been one of my favorites. But of, you know, at least in modern times, Wolverine's been the most popular, and, you know, no small thanks to Hugh Jackman and his portrayal in the movies of that. But over the course of this volume, different writers gave more or less attention to Wolverine and the role that he played in these stories. So you can see him on a lot of covers for certain runs and then not as frequent in other runs. Something else I'll say, I like that cover, by the way. That's not what I was going to say, but I'm pausing because it caught my eye. And I'll also say that on this issue 61, I did wind up with 2 copies, 2 different covers. The main cover that you saw just a second ago, and then this, the Marvel Retailer edition. So that's a pretty cool sketch cover there. And, which I believe is Stuart Immonen for the artist on that. But what I was going to say, as we go through these, you see some of the price tags on here still. Some of them said $1. I think one said $3. But I will tell you that aside from that issue 1, there aren't really any keys in this volume. So you can find these pretty inexpensively. And my first time I came across a large number of these in one store, I think it was a Half Price Books. I was traveling for work and I saw it had to be well over half the entire volume for 50 cents a piece. And I was not in a position to buy all those at the time, but they had them all there, bagged and boarded, 50 cents a piece. And even though I had to leave a lot of those behind, it's okay, because there's always more comics. You're always, for the most part, you're going to see those books again at some point, right? Not always a guarantee, but there's a good chance. And I can now tell you, having completed this whole volume, that I did not spend more than $1 on any one of these books, including the 2 copies of the first printing of #1 that I have in my collection now. So patience, more times than not, pays off. It's a Michael Turner cover there. So just to encourage you, as you're looking to put together volumes, if it's Ultimate X-Men, if it's something else, a lot of these books in the modern era, a lot of these volumes, for the most part, you can find them inexpensively, with the exception of those keys that pop up. But like I said, Ultimate X-Men didn't really have any keys, at least none that have hit the radar so far. So you can still get them pretty inexpensively. All right, we're into the home stretch here of this volume. I didn't mention the other writers, really. I started off with Mark Millar. I mentioned Brian Michael Bendis. There's a writer, last name is Vaughan. I'm forgetting his first name right now. Brian Vaughan, that's what it is. He wrote Why the Last Man? I think it's now going to be a TV show, but he wrote that, and he did a stint on Ultimate X-Men. You can see where we're looking right now. Robert Kirkman, he kind of rounded things out. I think he had it till the end of the volume. Those are some of the bigger artists that I recall that wrote Ultimate X-Men. And for a lot of these, you can tell I have not rebagged or boarded them yet. And for a lot of them, I probably won't, just because I have so many books to do that with, and bags and boards get expensive over time. And I have other priorities in my collection of things to rebag and board. But you can see some of these that will get that treatment eventually are ones that have a backing board like this. This came from a comic shop, I know, based on this sticker here, but I don't know where a board like that comes from. It's not the standard kind of board that you see in a comic shop, where it's, you know, not only is it non-coated on the back, it doesn't even have the white coloring, but who knows, maybe it's just a lesser expensive board. But those will eventually get rebagged and boarded for sure, but takes so much time to rebag and board everything, and it costs so much money. So I have said this before, and I will say it again, that as important as your bags and boards are to your comics, so too is the environment in which you store them. So the right temperature, low humidity is going to be super critical, just as much so as the bag and board that you choose, because like I said, it takes time to rebag and board things and costs money. So all right, and you can see these last few issues tie into that event I mentioned earlier, Ultimatum, which was a line-wide event for the Ultimate Universe. And then there's our final story, and Mark Brooks was drawing, I think I mentioned that before, here at the end. And then we kind of wrap things up with issue 100.
All right, that's going to do it for me, and that's going to wrap up this short box showcase looking back at Volume 1 of Marvel's Ultimate X-Men. Is this a series that you've collected, or maybe you're currently working on? Is it something maybe you've never given a thought to, but maybe now you're interested in checking it out? Let me know, especially if you've read it, what your thoughts were down below in the comments. Now, if you're not quite ready for the YouTube fun to stop, I have hand-selected a couple videos here for you to check out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.